Okay, class, lecture number 24. So we're at 24 of 26. We're getting very, very close to the end. Hey, I want to tell you something. I was reviewing your previous lecture. I always do that after the lectures are over, after they've been videoed. And I kept wondering, why are my hands shaking so badly? And I kept thinking about that and looking at my hands and thinking, well, you're just a trembler. And then I got to thinking about it a little bit. When I show you visuals and it's down below the camera, that means that I have to touch the table, the desk, and when I do so, that causes the camera to vibrate, or at least that's what I'm telling myself anyway. All right, but our last time together, we talked about a lot of things as we always do, and you know that, and to say that to you every introduction here. I mentioned to you about Fort Sumter. It took place on the 12th and 13th of April in 1861. We talked about after the engagement there at Fort Sumter that we had several other states that seceded from the Union: Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina. Now, that gives us 11 states that actually did secede from the Union, and we also had 3 other border states. You know what those border states are: Kentucky, Missouri, and Maryland. Some people include Delaware. I don't include Delaware. That. And with the absence of Southern congressmen, the Northern congressmen could pass virtually everything they wanted, such as that which was called the Homestead Act. Now, I don't need to go through that again for you folks. And to create land-grant colleges, the Morrill Act. And we also went into the Emancipation Proclamation. And when I try to pick you off in an examination and ask you true or false, the Emancipation Proclamation freed all persons of bondage in the United States of America, I hope you will tell me that it is false. It is only in areas under Confederate control. All right, we also talked about the presidential election in 1864. Abraham Lincoln won the Electoral College in a landslide, but it was only a 10% difference in the vote, and the popular vote, and the South did not even vote. All right, and then we talked a little bit about about war in general, how the North raised money, how they raised their troops, or I should say how they generated their troop strength. The South, the same thing with that. And we were closing out the class period with Jefferson Davis as president of the Confederacy. He was not elected, not by the people anyway. Alexander Hamilton Stevens was the vice president, a very brilliant individual, by the way. And I think we closed out with that of ironclads, and those were the iron-hulled ships of that day there, with the Monitor and the Merrimac. All right, so let's get into today's lecture here, folks. And I want to go to my camera here. And before I do this, I want to address a topic. It's a very controversial topic. I don't mean to have you stare at a blank screen there, folks. It's a very controversial topic. And I've considered for the past couple of years, to doing away with this part of the lecture. And I had a student come to me not too long ago, as a matter of fact, and told me, she said, the only thing I ever remember about your course was the flag exercise. And I thought, well, thank you very much. That's all you got out of my course was a flag exercise. And so anyway, we live in a very sensitive time here, folks. Anything that I say, anything that anybody says is going to be offensive to someone. But after long thoughts about this, I thought I would give you the little flag exercise here, and I hope that you'll benefit from that. So let me go back to my camera here, and I want to put a flag out here for you, and I certainly don't mean this to offend you, but do you recognize this flag? And you probably do recognize this flag. You don't know what it is, but you probably have at least seen this before. Alrighty, now it's a disgusting flag to many people, and I can somewhat appreciate that. And I will tell you right now, and I'm telling you the facts here, folks, is that slavery existed under this flag for 4 years. For 4 years. All right, now I want to show you another flag here. And here's a flag that you probably recognize. I hope you don't think it's disgusting. I want to take it down and track muddy footsteps on it, as some people in our country would like to do, but you probably recognize this flag. I guess I could turn it the right way for you good folks. That's what it looks like. And for most Americans, you're not disgusted with this flag at all. But I want to point out to you that slavery existed under this flag for 87 years. 87 years. The flag I showed you a few minutes ago that you don't know what it is, slavery existed under that flag for 4 years. All right, now I want to show you another flag, and we'll take a look at this flag. I don't know if you recognize it. It is a Union Jack. It's a flag of Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and I doubt that it is offensive to anybody in this classroom. I bet it does not offend you in any way whatsoever. But what if I told you that slavery existed under this flag for 169 years? 169 years. People just don't know. People are ignorant. I don't mean that derogatory, but people are just ignorant about this. Now I want to continue with my exercise here. Does anybody find this flag offensive? And the answer to that is no, because you don't know what that flag is. Notice the 7 stars that it has on it, and these are the 7 stars that represent the 7 original Confederate states that seceded from the Union. Now, folks, what this is the official flag of the Confederate States of America. And I'm telling you, if I had a large one of these flags, 3 feet by 5 feet, and I went down to the courthouse square tonight and lowered the flag of the United States and raised this flag in its place, tomorrow morning nobody will have a problem with it whatsoever. None whatsoever. If, however, I took this other flag, and I will not do this, and I raised this flag at night over the courthouse square in downtown Jasper, Alabama, do you know what the reaction would be tomorrow? There would be bedlam there. And people don't even know what this flag is. Okay, so anyway, there were too many people in 1862 that thought that this flag looked too much like the flag of the United States of America. So we came up with the second flag. Now, this is the second flag of the Confederacy here. Here's what it looks like. It's bordered in white, as you can see there, bordered in white. And it was an official flag of the Confederacy. But often when it was flown in battle, and you can watch what I'm doing here, when it was flown in battle, sometimes the flag got wrapped around a flagpole, flagstaff there, so that when the flag standard bearer was waving the flag, the troops thought that they were surrendering. Well, that just didn't work out. So what they decided to do, they came out with a next flag. And this is what the flag looked like. Here, okay, and this is another flag of the Confederacy here. So if we have the flag getting wrapped around the flagstaff, such as what you're seeing, nope, we're still in the fight. We're still in the fight. All right, and then finally, the Confederacy developed this flag. Now, this flag is called the Confederate Battle Flag. If you look at it carefully there, notice that it has 13 stars. That 13 stars represents the 11 states that seceded from the Union, and it also represents Kentucky and Missouri, which they had hoped would succeed from the Union and did not here. Notice the flag is square. The flag is square. It is bordered in white. Well, let's go back to the original flag that we had a few minutes ago, and that's this flag right here. What is this flag? It is not the Confederate battle flag. It's a naval flag. It's what is called the naval jack. It is flown off the back of a Confederate vessel right here. But this is a flag that causes everybody the problem with it, folks. So if you insist upon flying a flag off the back of your pickup truck, use the right one. Use the right one, and I don't recommend that you do that. All righty, so anyway, folks, that's where we are with the flag discussion there, and I hope that did not offend you, and if it did, I apologize for that. All right, now, many officers on both sides, and I'm talking about on the North and the South, were good friends with each other. They were acquainted. They fought in the Seminole Wars. They fought together in the Mexican War. And they knew each other very, very well. U.S. Grant, who was commonly called Sam Grant. His roommate at West Point was James Longstreet, Pete Longstreet. Pete Longstreet was Robert E. Lee's second in command, at the Battle of Gettysburg. Well, we had Longstreet on one side, you had Grant on the other side. If you've ever watched the movie Gettysburg, one of the principal themes that you have in this movie Gettysburg is that of Lew Armistead and Richard Garrett, who were Confederate generals fighting in the Battle of Gettysburg. And who they were fighting against was Winfield Scott Hancock, who was a Northern general, and the three of them were very, very best friends with each other, too. And as it turned out, we had the two Confederate generals were killed, and Winfield Scott Hancock, the Northern general, was very seriously injured here, and grievously injured. All right, often we'd find that there would be political commanders. And let's say, for example, here that Jasper, Alabama, and we did organize a number of units that fought for the Confederacy, and one unit that did fight for the North, as a matter of fact. But let's just say that the mayor of Jasper decided he was going to organize his own regiment, make himself a colonel, and that's what he would do. And so we had these individuals that were political commanders that were commanding these units, but they had no military experience whatsoever. All right, and often what you would find here is just somebody quite popular would be elected as company commander. Then if you failed in combat, we'll just de-elect the individual and he'll become a private soldier again and we'll find a new commander. All right, that's just all a part of it. Now, let me show you something else here, folks, and this is kind of interesting. I'm going to go very quickly into and spend most of the class period talking to you about some of the campaigns, some of the engagements of the Civil War, and I'm not going to beat you up with this. Honest to goodness, I could give you an entire course on the Civil War, but we're just limiting it to basically a lecture and a half, 2 lectures at the very most here. All right, and I'm just trying to point out to you the most interesting features of this, and a lot of my students really, really enjoy this section. But in this war, we had on both sides 618,000 Americans that died in the war from various causes. If we take all the wars in the history of the United States and the dead from all of those wars and tally all of them up, it barely surpasses that of one war in 4 years in the American Civil War. We had 38,000 African Americans that also died in the war, likewise from various causes. All right, so why do we have the casualties to be so high? Well, what you're going to see here, my friends, is we have modern tactics, or I should say modern weaponry, and we had antiquated tactics here, still fighting in the same tactics that we had basically in the Revolutionary War with weapons that were very powerful and very accurate. We had weapons such as a cannon. Here I took this photograph not too long ago, as a matter of fact, over at Vicksburg battlefield. Very beautiful battlefield, and I always recommend that you go to these battlefields. A lot of history that is present there, but very accurate artillery pieces here. Here's a cannonball, a small cannonball. I put it over here so you can see it a little bit better. I just happened to grab this off my shelf here right next to my desk here. But you can imagine what this would do if it did strike you, and they had cannonballs that were much larger than this, by the way. Now, the typical type of bullet that we used during this time was called a mini ball. This is what it looks like here. It's a 58 caliber mini ball, and if we were in class now, I would drop this into the hand of one of my students. You can hear the thud that it makes, such as that. And I'll tell you, good folks, here, if this bullet here strikes you in the forearm, you're going to lose an arm. If it strikes you in the leg, you're going to lose a leg. If it hits you in the thoracic cavity, if it passes cleanly through, you might survive. If it hits you in the abdominal cavity, you probably will survive, for a week or two until gangrene infection sets in and you're going to die. You know what's going to happen if this bullet, this mini ball here, named for Claude Mini, by the way, if that bullet hits you in the head, you're going to be a dead individual. All right, so that's what we have here, folks. We have these modern weapons, antiquated tactics. All right, so let's go through a couple of these engagements here. I've got about 4 of these I want to mention and go through these in a little bit depth here. And let me just tell you about the battles in the Civil War. For the North names battles after bodies of water, like a river or a creek. And for the South names the battles after the close-by city, the nearby city. All right? So in this example here, there's a city in Virginia which is called Manassas. So that's the way the South gives the name of the battle. For the North refers to it as the battle at Bull Run because it involved a little creek there. And generally, the accepted title for the battle there is whoever wins. Whoever wins. So if we look at this like first Manassas, and Manassas is a town, this indicates that the Confederates won that. All right, so this battle will take place on July the 21st, 1861. It only resulted in about 900 deaths here, so it's minor by Civil War battle standards. And the battle took place just right outside of Washington, D.C. So many people actually followed the Northern Army out. They were like tailgaters and followed the Northern Army out to this anticipated fight with the Confederacy. So the Northern Army here and all of these spectators here in their carriages and wagons were going down the Warrenton Turnpike. And as they went down, and you can go there today, as they went down, passed down the Warrenton Turnpike, they crossed the Bull Run Creek. There's a bridge that's present right here. It's a narrow bridge, and this is a 4-lane highway today, by the way. And when they passed across the bridge there, they could see the Confederates up on the hill. And so they divided their forces to some degree and sent one element here to attack the Confederates and took another element and went around the other side here, around like this, up a hill, and then came down the hill. You can't see that. And then they were going to assault the Confederate positions, which are in red, which is right here. such as that. All right, and when they did so, it looked like the Confederate lines were just going to collapse. Confederate lines were retreating back this way here, with one exception. And we had one group of Confederates that were down in this area right here. And they were holding their ground. They were holding fast there. And finally, there was an Alabama general that was over in this area here. And he was trying to rally his men, and he told his men, he said, look at Jackson, standing like a damn stone wall. Rally behind the Virginians. And when they did so, the Confederates regrouped here. And with Jackson's men, they outflanked here the Northern Army here, and literally drove the Northern Army off the battlefield. Whereas the Northern Army was retreating through here, now we had all these civilians that were likewise trying to retreat too. So we just had one just huge mess. It's kind of like the end of an Alabama-Auburn football game when you have traffic just not moving in any direction with that. And anyway, it was just one big mess here. And historians have argued that if the Confederates had been able to consolidate and move in this direction here, that they probably could have eliminated the entire Northern Army, or most of it, and moved on Washington, D.C., taken Washington, D.C., and the war would come to a close. All right, now I'm going to challenge you with this. Who do you think this individual is right here? And his name is Thomas Jackson, and what will his nickname become? And you know his nickname will become Stonewall Jackson. And here's a likeness here of Stonewall Jackson's, actually that's at his burial site. It's a family plot. It's in, if I remember right, I think it's Lexington, Virginia. An interesting place to visit there. VMI, Virginia Military Institute, is likewise present there. Okay, so I'm going to flip this back to me for just a second here and show you a National Park Service brochure. Let's see if I can get it to lighten a little bit here. National Park Service brochure. Got a little bit of glare on it right there that shows you this battlefield at Manassas. Notice there in the center there, we have Stonewall Jackson. Stonewall Jackson, high on his horse right there, whatever. All right, it's a interesting place to visit there, folks. Okay, so let's go back here and we'll pick up another engagement here. And let's see what is next for us. And this is another interesting battle that takes place here at Shiloh. Now, Shiloh is located in the southern parts of Tennessee. If you know where Corinth, Mississippi is, if you will travel north about 20 miles, 18 miles, and enter into Tennessee, then shortly after that you'll come across this battle site of Shiloh. And I recommend that you visit there, honestly, here. All right, so let's go through a couple of terrain features here. And what we have here is the Tennessee River. This is the same river that runs through Huntsville, Alabama, by Huntsville, Alabama, and Decatur and so forth here, on up into Tennessee itself here. And for the North had an army under General Grant that had about 40,000 troops here. And by the way, before I forget this, the time frame for this is 6th or 7th of April, 1862, so that's in the spring of the year. And I recommend that if you're going to visit that battlefield, that you go in around that time frame. And I have a reason to tell you about that in just a second. And so no Confederates were even close by. So for General Grant, he positioned his army in unfortified areas here. In other words, they were not dug in. There were no trenches or anything like that. Part of his army was over here at Shiloh Church here. I think it's Shiloh Methodist Church today. The church was burned in the battle, and it was rebuilt later. And then there was another key terrain feature here, which was called the Sunken Road. And so many wagons had traveled down this road for years that the road was sunk about 12 to 18 inches. And if we go a little bit further in this direction here, there was a very dense wooded area there. You couldn't see 30 feet in front of you here, folks. It was called the Hornet's Nest. And then we had a peach orchard, and that's why I recommend that you go in April. And this peach orchard, which was about 100 acres, and all these peach trees, that represents peach trees here, were all in full bloom at that time. So you had all these little white peach blossoms that were in bloom. All right, now when the Confederates approached, the Confederates came from Corinth, Mississippi. They're under General Albert Sidney Johnston, A.S. Johnson. Albert Sidney Johnston has an army of about 44,000. And they were coming in this direction, trying to maintain silence here, because they were trying to slip up on the Northern Army here. They knew the Northern Army was about 18 miles ahead of them. But these are Southern boys, and you know Southern boys, if you have a lot of troops, 44,000 troops, that are moving through the bushes and the brambles, you know, they're kicking up rabbits and deer, and you know it's ingrained in Southern mentality for a Southern male that if you're carrying a weapon a rifle and a deer jumps up in front of you, or a rabbit jumps up in front of you, you have to take a shot at it, you know. So they were doing anything but maintaining silence here. But the North did not detect them. And when the South first attacked, they came in up here at this area, Shiloh Church, and bloody fighting took place there. And then the battle just kind of evolved down in this direction. It went from Shiloh Church down to the Sunken Road, down to the Hornet's Nest. There was something like 11 frontal attacks here from the South attacking the northern positions, never penetrating here, and finally down into the peach orchard itself. And then, amazingly, General Johnson left. He was in the rear, and General Johnson took the initiative. He had the governor of Tennessee with him and rode to the front here to check on the situation that was taking place there. And General Johnson had previously had his personal surgeon that traveled with him to go to the front to take care of some of the Confederate battle injuries there. And then all of a sudden, the governor of Tennessee turned around and looked at General Johnson, and he said, General, are you okay? Has something happened to you? And for General Johnson, he was just ashen-faced with that. And he didn't know what had happened to him. So they took him down into a little ravine here, got him off of his horse, and still could find no injuries whatsoever. And then finally, they removed the boots, and when they did so, they found in the boot, one of the boots, that it was full of blood. And what had happened is that General Johnson had been shot, probably by a Confederate, by mistake anyway, had been shot in the back of the knee, and it had pierced the popliteal artery, and General Johnson bled to death. So with that, that just took the momentum out of the Confederate attack, and that was basically it for the first day's activities here. Now, by the way, many of the North and the South Southerners and the Northern injured made their way up to a pool, a little pond here called Bloody Pond, and there were so many of these injuries here, so many of the injured soldiers, that to quench their thirst and to make themselves feel a little bit better, went down into the pond, to spend their last minutes of their lives anyway. And it so darkened the pond with blood that they refer to it henceforth as Bloody Pond. In the course of that night, 25,000 new reinforcements came in to join General Grant's 40,000 here, what remained of 40,000. And on the next day, the North regrouped, if you will, and they drove the Confederates off the battlefield. That's the Battle of Shiloh here, folks. It is declared as a Northern victory. All right, let's move on here. I want to go through another engagement here, and this will not take us quite so long. And we're going to go into the battle here at Antietam. Now, General Lee was going to change the tactics. This is in September 1862, and what he was going to do, let's take the war out of the South and move the war up to the North. And so what he wanted to do here was to move his army in this direction north, and he was going to use the mountain here, South Mountain, Catoctin Mountain here, and use that as a shield from the northern movement. So Lee was moving in this direction here, and the North was on the other side of the mountain under General McClellan. And they did not have any idea where General Lee's army was. And so as it turned out, and this is a kind of interesting story, as it turned out, General McClellan had some of his scouts, and they were out just riding around the countryside, just on their horses, looking around for any kind of information about where Lee's army was. And when they did so, they rode by through a farmer's field, and as they did so, one of the cavalrymen halted the guys that were with him. He said, hold up here, guys, hold up. He said, I hear something down on the ground. And he said, look what I found here. And the other guys that were with him said, well, what is that? What do you have? And he said, I don't know, but he said, it's got some cigars inside of here, and fine Southern tobacco. And one of the guys said, well, why don't you see what's in the paper? And so when they did so, the one that found it opened up this piece of paper, and there it was. If I can get it right here, folks, and there it was. It says Lee's Special Order 191, Lee's Special Order 191, which gave detailed instructions on what the plans were for Robert E. Lee. And so anyway, the cavalrymen carried Lee's Special Order 191 back to General McClellan and gave it to him. And when General McClellan saw it, he said, now I have got Bobby Lee. I've got him. And then he thought about it a minute, and he said, no, I think it's a trick. I think they just planted it there, and that it's not the real thing. And he thought about it for about 24 hours, and then he went back and he said, I think it is the real thing. And so that's when he ordered his troops and ordered his troops here to now proceed through Turner's Gap. And so the Northern Army went through Turner's Gap right here, and that's where they found Lee's army right here up on Antietam Creek. Now, Antietam Creek is about like Blackwater Creek, has a nearby town there, which is called Sharpsburg. For Confederate historians, they refer to this as the Battle of Sharpsburg. For Northern historians, they refer to it as the Battle of Antietam. All right, and it lasts for one day here, folks. As I said a second ago, September the 17th, 1862. And during this one day, let me get this right, during this one day, we had 23,110 casualties. And that's for both sides here, folks. This Battle of Antietam was the single bloodiest one-day battle of the American Civil War. It's a beautiful battlefield. If you get a chance to go there, I highly recommend that you do so. It's right on the northern boundaries of Maryland, and not very far from where the Pennsylvania line is located, likewise here. Following day, Robert E. Lee disengaged from the activities and moved back into Virginia here. So most historians will tell you that it was a victory for the North. Quite personally here, I think it was a draw. There was no clear victor there. Okay, I want to go back to myself for a second here. I did not show you the National Park Service brochure for the battle at Shiloh. These are always fun places to visit here, folks. Not very far from where we live. If you live close to Jasper, this battlefield is about, 2 hours and 15 minutes away here. And I also wanted to show you the National Park Service brochure for the battlefield of Antietam. If I had more time, I would tell you about Burnside Bridge, which is in the background here, but I do not. And I can also see a likeness there of Clara Barton. She was a battlefield nurse at that battle. Hey, very, very nice battlefield. You can see the driving tour that's right here. Okay, so let's move on here. And I want to go back to my camera here for a second, and let's see what other engagements we have. Now, another engagement that we have is one which took place at Chancellorsville. Chancellorsville is a little country crossroads located in Virginia. Yeah, let me display this a little bit further for you good folks here, such as what we have here. And I'll give you little terrain features here. The Confederate Army was over here with Robert E. Lee, and Robert E. Lee had won a magnificent victory over the North, over Ambrose Burnside, at a place called Fredericksburg. Fredericksburg, neat little town right there, folks, on the Rappahannock River. It got some of the best blue crab that you'll ever have, steamed blue crab. And after the battle, the Northern Army, under a new commander, positioned itself across from Robert E. Lee's army at Fredericksburg. They were led by General Joe Hooker. I'll tell you a little bit about Joe Hooker. I may have a likeness of him to show you in just a little bit. Joe Hooker, he had a fondness for alcohol. He had a fondness for women. We don't use this phrase in the South at all, but in the North, if you take a shot of whiskey, it's called taking a hooker. So anyway, Hooker also had a fascination for the ladies of the night, who would often visit him in the northern camps there, and those ladies were henceforth referred to as hookers. They're hookers girls. All right, anyway, and supposedly that's where the title came from. All right, so what Joe Hooker devised, Fighting Joe Hooker devised as a plan, was to hold Lee's army in place here and keep a northern force here, and then send the majority of the Northern Army and send them to the north and cross the Rappahannock River, cross the Rapidan River, and then come in behind Robert E. Lee's army. That's a good plan. You can see what they were going to do. They were going to trap Robert E. Lee's army. And so when Lee was made aware of that, he kept a holding force here at Fredericksburg and took his main body and moved them up here to a little crossroads tavern, which is called Chancellorsville. Not much to this today here, folks. It's a residential area, so it's not one of the better battlefields to visit here. And the engagement took place here from 1 through 5 May 1863, and it was just stalemate. And so what Robert E. Lee had actually done, he had divided his army in the face of a numerically superior army. And then Lee did the absolute unthinkable. Once again, he divided his army. And that's where his brilliance comes in here, folks. So he kept a checking force here, and then under Stonewall Jackson sent about 15,000 men and sent them through these old paths, just old muddy roads here, and rutted out roads, and sent them around here and outflanked the Northern Army. So this meant that you can now have Lee coming in from this side to the north and Stonewall Jackson from this side against the north. And it was just an amazing maneuver here, and move the Northern Army here. Let me get myself back in position here, and just force the Northern Army back across the Rapidan River and back across the Rappahannock. Quite personally, I think that this was Robert E. Lee's greatest victory here, folks. But for Stonewall Jackson, he and his escort, on a very rainy day here, the day had waned away, and it was just barely twilight, if you will, went down to the Rapidan River to confirm that the Northern Army was in full retreat. And when they were returning, these Confederate soldiers who had trigger fingers and happy trigger fingers because they'd been in combat all day, mistakenly fired upon Stonewall Jackson and his entourage there, and they hit Stonewall Jackson. Bullet went into his left shoulder, and one bullet went through his hand and knocked him from his horse, which was a terrific blow there. And it actually looked like Stonewall Jackson was going to be able to recover from this, but they took him 3 or 4 miles away and then moved him another 25 or 30 miles down to Kenny's Station, and they thought he was going to recover here after they amputated his arm, but infection set in and Stonewall Jackson died. So it was a sweet victory for Robert E. Lee, but it was a serious cost in losing one of his greatest generals, Stonewall Jackson. All right, so once again, Lee moves north here, folks. And he does so here in July of 1863. And I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to have to kind of pick up here. And if you go to this little town in southern Pennsylvania, you find this little town which is called Gettysburg. It has importance to it because I'm not going to go through all of these, because you have a road here which is called a Cashtown Turnpike here, Cashtown Turnpike. We have another road here which is a Hagerstown Road here. There's a Mumminsburg Road. You have the Carlisle Road here, the Hanover Road here, the Hagerstown Road here. You have the Hanover Road, which is here. Here, I'm having a hard time of losing my place here, folks. The York Road, the Baltimore Turnpike, the Emmitsburg Road. I know these roads very well. I spent 2 years of my life up at Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania, at Army War College, and every spare moment I had, I would always go down to the Gettysburg battlefield and visit there. So I rode these roads many times here. But when the Confederates approached, they approached from this direction here. This is on the first day. We had 3 days of battle here. And the Northern Army assembled itself on Cemetery Ridge and over here through Culp's Hill, such as this. And so when the Confederates attacked on the first day, it was a stalemate. And on the second day, they made their attack coming across here on the southern parts of the northern lines here and attacked a place here called Round Top. And they did take Round Top. That was under Colonel William C. Oates with 15th Alabama, later governor of Alabama. But they failed in taking Little Round Top, which was occupied by the 20th Maine under Joshua Chamberlain. If you've watched the movie Gettysburg, you know all about this. And so for the second day, it failed for the Confederacy too. Stalemate here. And on the third day, the Confederates launched forth 12,000 men, maybe 15,000 men, counting a little bit extra that joined them. This is referred to as Pickett's Charge, in which they went straight across here, right into the center of the Union line. And I got to tell you, folks, here, those Confederate soldiers were just absolutely just cut to pieces by the Northern forces there. Beautiful battlefield if you visit the battlefield at Gettysburg. And on the next day, which would have been July the 4th, Robert E. Lee's army departed out of Pennsylvania and continued on through Maryland and back into Virginia. Okay, so here's a National Park Service brochure showing you the battlefield at Gettysburg. If you're a student of this, I recommend to you that you spend an entire day there, folks. Actually, you can, if you're a really enthusiastic Civil War historian, you can spend a couple of days there. Here showing you the battle maps here, whatever. I'm sorry that you're not in class with me, because you would have the opportunity to explore those a little bit further. Okay, let's move on here, folks. And because we're approaching the end of the class period. Following this, let me get back here, staring at nothing. Following this, and the next couple of months, it was November, Abraham Lincoln did visit the battlefield. He delivered his Gettysburg Address there. On November 19th, 1863, 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. All right, if we had more time, I would have read through that entire Gettysburg Address for you. Some of the other engagements here, I'm not going to go into these. Chickamauga, beautiful battlefield. It's about 2.5 hours from here, folks, up near Chattanooga. While you're there, be sure and taken the battle site there at Chattanooga itself, which actually took place halfway up Lookout Mountain. This will end up with Sherman's March to the Sea, a 60-mile swath that will cut right through the heartland of Georgia, plundering, burning everything in sight with Sherman's march there. War is all hell, is what Sherman is quoted as saying there. All the way down to Savannah, by the way. Other interesting engagements here at Franklin, which is near Nashville. And not a very large battlefield there, but you can go by the Carter House if you wish to do so. The battlefields at Nashville, and it was a very serious battle there, but the battlefields at Nashville have been largely unpreserved, so it's all in residential area. Another battle took place with Bentonville. My great-great-grandfather was in that battle at Bentonville, and he was struck on the arm with a piece of shrapnel, a small cannonball, and that was the only time he was injured during the course of the war. He went all the way from 1861 and to 1865, where he was finally surrendered for his third time. He was likewise surrendered at Vicksburg. All right, and then the war finally come to a close when Robert E. Lee will surrender. And will surrender General Grant on April 9th, 1865. And if we had more time, I would go into this. For Walker County, Jasper, we had very, very little Civil War activity. There was Wilson's Raid that took place in March and April of 1865 anyway. 13,400 Northern troopers actually went through Jasper, Alabama, supposedly burned the courthouse, and but I have no documentation on that. I've studied this at length here, folks, and if we had more time, I would give you a short lecture here about Wilson's Raid coming through. Okay, let me close out here, and I want to share some photographs with you folks, and we'll go through these quickly, and let's see if I have these up here. All right, you can see General McClellan. I always get things backwards right here. This is General McClellan, which is over on this side, and William Tecumseh Sherman, who is over on the opposite side here, and that's on this side here. Okay, some other photographs here. An actual photograph of Little Mac, who was General McClellan. I have to hold it like this, and here he is right here. This is George McClellan. This is a few days after the battle, if you will, at Antietam. And notice Abraham Lincoln, who is 6'4", standing next to Little Mac, and you can see the size difference there. Abraham Lincoln had this stovepipe hat that was about 12 inches, so it made him look like he was 7'4" in height here. Okay, some of the other photographs here, these are actual photographs that came from the Civil War. These are Confederate dead at the Battle of Antietam. You can go right to that very place today if you wish to do so. And let's see who else we have. That's the members of the 24th Michigan. This is on the first day at Gettysburg. The Iron Brigade is what it was known as here. These are Northern dead. And we have here, this is the 1st Minnesota, I believe it is, day 2. Day 2 at the Battle of Gettysburg. You actually go to this very place if you wish to do so. Photography was rather young at this time, so you had to have your person or the event you're taking a photo of has to be extremely still. There can be no movement whatsoever. It was not unusual at all for photographers to stage these photographs here. This has always been reported as a Confederate sniper, but what these photographers would do, they'd just take a dead soldier and just drag them up and just put them in some crazy position, put a couple of weapons around them, take the photograph, and then just make up the caption to it. All right, let's see who else we have here. This photograph is from the battle at Cold Harbor. U.S. Grant sacrificed, I think it was 7,000 Northern troops in a matter of 15 minutes, sending those troops right into a frontal attack against fortified Confederate positions. Hasty burials would take place here, and then 5 months later, burial details would come out and give the dead that had been buried very quickly there in shallow graves, proper burial. And for the corpses, you would find canteens, boots, clothing still attached to the individual there. Okay, an actual photograph of a staff meeting with General Grant. And let's see if I can find General Grant here. I'm going to have to turn it around. But this is Grant here in this photograph. Grant smoked cigars after his victory at Shiloh. Somebody gave him a box of cigars, and he developed a fascination for cigars and tobacco, which will eventually lead to his death and lung cancer. You know, that's what tobacco will do for you, folks. That was an ugly thing to say, but I said it anyway. Okay, we'll hurry through these. Northern soldiers here, nice uniforms here, wool uniforms, good boots. Confederate soldiers, threadbare. Northern soldiers here taking chow. You always have to be very still when a photograph is taken. This is known as it's a cohort mortar is what it actually is. Fires these tremendous cannonballs, not very accurate. Okay, let's see what we have here. What am I looking at? I'm looking at just northern field pieces here. Again, northern field pieces. This is parrot guns, what they call them. Notice the heavy banding around the back of the gun. These are field guns. All right, African-American sailors here. And I told you earlier, 186,000 soldiers and sailors, African Americans, served during the war. Okay, and where General Lee surrendered to General Grant was at Appomattox in the McLean House. You can visit there today. Go inside the house if you wish to do so. That house was disassembled after the war, but it has since that time been reconstructed. All righty. And so anyway, and that's our photographs here, folks. So the Civil War comes to a close, and the next time we get together, we're going to go into this most difficult period here, folks, which is called Reconstruction, where we're going to see a very vindictive North turn upon a humiliated and defeated South. All right. Thank you very much.